Hi, any and everyone that might ever be listening to this. My name is not Lila Catan. It is actually Kat. I don't necessarily care to give away my whole name. Maybe in the future I will, but as for right now, I'm still kind of keeping it under wraps a little bit. Um, but like I said, my actual first name is Kat. Lila Catan is my like stage name, if you will. And so welcome to my channel. For now, I'm going to read, this is a book that I published in June of 2022. As of recording this, it's February of 2025. And I have read through it again once. I recorded an audio version of it, basically like doing was going to start this like a couple of years ago, and then I still ended up putting it on the back burner again. And so now finally here we are. And which is fine because I just finished reading through my journals from this time period that inspired writing this book, which is a hypothesis or a dissertation, if you will, on what I think the actual neurological basis of narcissistic personality disorder is. And um, excuse me, with color commentary and everything. And now that I've finished up like working through that, like I feel like I'm ready to move on and really kind of do a final editing of this work. So as I said, I've published this. I self-published it as an actual book. I don't want to give away what the book title is for like one of the like maybe weirdest reasons. If you watch my other content, you'll kind of have a better understanding of what my life is actually like and consists of. But basically, when I published it, I used Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. And at the time, I had my own website and a business email address and my phone at the time and all of that. So it's locked up under two-factor authentication behind a phone number that I haven't possessed in like 3 years. And despite multiple attempts to get through to Amazon's customer service to try to resolve this issue, it's like nobody knows what I'm talking about, right? It's like weird. They like the consumer side says you have to talk to the business side, and the business side doesn't ever respond to anything. And then when they do, they're like, you just go to the consumer. And even when I go through the channels of trying to find the right place for support, like it just takes me around in a circle. And so what I'm doing here with this as well is I need to like re-edit this because for a couple of reasons. So for starters though is just the logistics of well I'll just publish it again and be a little bit more mindful of how I lock down access to my account. Um I guess, and then because I had no idea it would be that hard to get around something like this with the two-factor authentication like and stuff like that, that it's like the fact that I there's literally seemingly no way without having access to that phone number to ever get back into this account, and that just seems really silly to me. um, but that being said, and also like this obviously is not the like an official audiobook version of this. This is me reading through what I guess you could say the first edition to correct some errors because there were a few typos in that I found after, because when I published it I bought a few copies for myself, right? Um, so, anywho, all that being said, so my other agenda here is that, and this will come up right off the bat in the introduction, but I'm just going to get this out of the way now. Um, when I originally published this, I did seek, because I based, okay, so let me back up again. So, during the 5 years that I was a live-in caregiver for the man that I talk about in Light Traffic, right, and that I kept the journals of and everything. Um, I had just kind of like this epiphany with like I literally remember like he was down doing his little 3 hour stint in the community room, um, being kind of the point of contact for the building. You know, like it was a secured building, so it was like things like if FedEx came to deliver packages, they can't get in the building to deliver the packages. So there was kind of a group of people that lived in the building that were like their community board, and they would take turns being just sitting downstairs in case of things like that. Like if or like if somebody's family members wanted to just kind of show up and like drop in for a visit or something like that, that somebody was at least at the building to facilitate people being able to get inside, right? And that sort of thing. And they had a pool table and a couple of computers and a little workout area and stuff down there. So they kind of were just like the activities like watchdog kind of person, right? So anyway, so one of the days while he was downstairs doing that, um, usually when he would do that, that's when I would clean the apartment because he was a very underfoot type of individual. And so when he was gone, I would like move the furniture and sweep and mop and like clean the bathroom and the kitchen thoroughly and clean out the refrigerator and like do those sorts of things. Because if you tried to do it when he was around, he would insist on helping, which had a very different definition to him than it would do than to have literally anybody else involved in the situation. I'm sure like, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, right? His idea of helping actually just made tasks even more difficult. And so, like I said, he was a very underfoot individual. So anyway, all that being said, my point being, I'm sweeping the floor one day and it just hit me like a bolt from the blue. It occurred to me, I said, you know what it is with people who are like really kind of full of themselves and like kind of narcissistic like this? They're not trying to get everyone's attention. They believe they already have it. But because they don't, right, that we're actually, as people who are just experiencing them, we're misinterpreting the motivation or like the driving factors behind what's making them act this way. To the tune that I actually also think that calling it narcissism, considering that people tend to think of that as being some kind of an arrogance or a conceit or just self-importance, that's not what their actual issue is. It's actually they have trouble accurately like placing themselves within the climate of the environment. Like the saying that always comes to mind is like when somebody is being a little bit off and like you reply to them like, dude, like read the room, right? They actually have a cognitive problem with reading the room, so to speak, right? So it's like they really don't actually accurately track where they fit into the bigger picture, right? And so, yeah, self-importance plays a role in that stuff too. But I'd say it's more of an objective lack of self-awareness. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit more of a fine-tuned, specific thing that I ended up honing down to, like, what actually, though, with dealing with him day in and day out, what actually seems to be the thing that he really seems to not do well that's causing him all of these other problems. And I felt like I finally hit on it. And when I did, I was like, okay, I'm going to start evaluating using the diagnostic criteria from the DSM and kind of just using that as a framework to kind of keep track of stuff. But what I ended up coming across was a proposal that started out in 2011. And this proposal was for an alternative model of diagnostic criteria for the personality disorders as a whole. And so they all share, there's five aspects of these diagnostic criteria that they share three exclusionary criteria. So three aspects or elements that like you have to kind of take into consideration first. And if they meet any of those, then they don't actually qualify for a diagnosis of a personality disorder. So that's things like traumatic brain injury, born with a chronic developmental disability, or like substance abuse issues, et cetera, right? That it's like it doesn't make sense to like call someone who's a raging alcoholic a narcissistic prick because they're a raging alcoholic. This sort of like rationalized distinction is something that it also like plays into other factors of my life as well. So I'll just put that out there here just for the sake of it. Um, so I guess maybe I should put here, just because maybe it would be useful. I like to also distinguish between rationality and reason. And don't worry, I'm not going to go all Kant on you or anything like that for a second. It's just a real simple definition, right? To me, and this has worked well for me doing a lot of things when it comes to philosophy or any other kind of evaluating or consulting and analyzing, is rationality is a person's objective ability to utilize logical operators. So, like, and, but, is, or, if, then, only, whenever, universe, right? So, like, the way that you operate and get and understand information from the external world and from your environment, right? There's the mechanics of it, which I would refer to as rationality. Reasoning ability and reason is your ability to put the right variables into the right places and then utilize the logical operators, right? So it's like just thinking back to your basic algebra, right? Like x plus y equals 6 and 2x plus 2y equals 12, right? And you come up with both x and y equal 3. So I'm coming up with that off the top of my head, so I'm making it extra simple. Okay, right? And so that the plus is rationality. X and Y are mysterious variables, and then numbers are concrete variables, and your ability to understand how to manipulate the unknown variables in order to arrive at their concrete variables, et cetera, is how is the difference between rationality and reason, right? Reason is knowing that 3 is a number, and so X and or Y could stand for 3. Knowing that plus means 3, add 3 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to arrive at the answer is reasoning ability. Okay, so when I talk about something being rational or irrational, I mean an objective inability to actually think straight. And when I say reasoning, I mean a subjective inability to properly analyze the environment, but and actually determine what, like, kind of the difference between determining what even is evidence and then being able to put the evidence together as clues to draw a conclusion are two completely different things. Okay, so that being said, so the other is just a housekeeping issue. When I was originally publishing this, I had contacted the APA then to get, because as I said, I used as a framework this, it ended up being in the DSM-5, but it's still not the actual diagnostic criteria. It's still just in the back as like alternative proposed model of diagnostic criteria for personality disorders. And so I reached out to them to see if I could get a license to use these in the book directly, and I knew I should be told no and whatever, but I did try and to see, what they would say. And so they're like, yeah, because I don't have diagnostic thrust. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a master's. I'm not a clinical psychologist or anything like that. That you wouldn't want people to get the wrong impression that this is an actual work that would be usable as a framework for diagnosis and stuff like that, and whatever, blah, 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 blah. So, what I originally did when I published it was I just stylized all of the diagnostic criteria, all of the things in that document, like for the proposed uh, criteria. I just stylized them in kind of a sassy, snarky, other way of saying exactly the same thing, basically, and just moved on with that. And I'm going to keep that. But I also didn't refer to it as narcissistic personality disorder. I called it daffodilic personality disorder, and I'm not going to do that for this second publishing. I'm going to just be straight about it because a lot of people write and self-publish books about their experience with narcissists and this and that and the other. And so I feel like insofar as it's a term that everybody understands, and I feel like I've made it perfectly clear that this is a hypothesis about it and not actually a diagnostic model, I don't see why it's problematic to call it what it is, right? We're going to call a spade a spade. Um, so, with all of that being said, section 1, Valley of the Narcissist, really only has this first chapter. This is just the introduction. This is just the lowdown on the lowdown. And so, like I said, this is all just introductory. And so some of this is going to be a little bit repetitive, but I'm going to go into more depth about who I am and why I'm doing this and what exactly it is that I'm saying here. Okay. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with section 1, chapter 1 in the next episode. See you later. Bye.